Well, first I'd like to get to know the crowd a little bit. Who here is from Professor Cullison's epistemology class? Wow, okay, so a good number of you. Who's taken a philosophy class before? Okay, okay, everybody included. All right, well, I just wanted to say thanks, Andy, for the both the hospitality, and I'm really happy and honored to be here. It's, I remember going to the website and seeing the other talks that have been part of the Young Philosopher lecture series. So it's really nice to be adding to that, kind of an honor and privilege. I'm going to say a couple things. This talk is a research talk, so it'll be a little bit more high intensity, a little more kind of a higher level philosophy. So what I mean to say by that is tomorrow's presentation will be a lot more intro level. It'll be a lot more informal, more interactive. So you can look forward to that. It'll be on the how to respond to religious disagreement. And this paper will be on a view in epistemology called Internalism. Okay, so with that, we'll go right into the paper, and you can follow along in the handout. So let reliabilism be the view that a belief is justified if and only if it is formed, or it is reliably formed. On the handout, Keith Lair and Stuart Cohen have produced the following well-known and powerful counterexample to reliabilism. So I'll read a version of it as explained by Ralph Wedgwood. He writes, consider two possible worlds, W1 and W2. In both worlds, you have exactly the same experiences, apparent memories, and intuitions, and in both worlds, you go through exactly the same processes of reasoning and form exactly the same beliefs. In this case, it seems exactly the same beliefs are rational in both worlds, and exactly the same beliefs are irrational in both worlds. Now suppose that in W1, you are bedeviled by an evil demon who ensures that many of your experiences are misleading, and with the result that many of the beliefs that you hold in W1 are false. In W2, on the other hand, almost all your experiences are veridical, with the result that almost all the beliefs that you hold in W2 are true. Intuitively, this makes no difference at all. Exactly the same beliefs are rational and irrational in both worlds. This intuition seems to support an internalist conception of rational belief. According to this conception, the rationality of a belief supervenes purely on internal facts about the thinker's mental states. In this example, on facts that hold in both the two possible worlds, W1 and W2, not on facts about the external world that vary between W1 and W2. Okay? So, the old evil demon problem, as given by René Descartes, was used as an argument for skepticism, right? How do we know we're not all fooled by a demon, and maybe we don't have any knowledge of it all? The new evil demon problem is used as a counterexample to reliabilism, and also as an argument for internalism and against externalism. So even if your beliefs are very unreliably formed, most of your beliefs are false, if you were in the matrix, you'd still be justified if you had the same experiences. That's the idea. So justification solely depends on internal experiences. That's what internalism is about. So this argument against reliabilism and for internalism has been very influential. Prominent philosophers and epistemologists think it's probably one of the biggest problems for externalism and reliabilism. Okay, with that said, as far as I'm aware, nobody has noticed that the new evil demon problem can also afflict almost all forms of internalism. This unnoticed point is a primary thesis of this paper, called Thesis 1 on the handout. So it's bad news for the internalists that they have the same problem that they have been leveling for decades against externalists. Okay, so it applies to their very own view. So yeah, that's the problem, my primary thesis. The secondary thesis is that epistemologists must either face the force of the new evil demon problem or accept a very radical version of internalism. And that's my secondary thesis. I should make clear at the outset that in applying the new evil demon problem to internalism, I'm not taking myself to be presenting a knockdown argument against it. Just as some externalists might think that other theoretical considerations in favor of externalism outweigh the new evil demon problem against it, internalists might think the same. So I'm only attempting to show that the problem does apply to internalism, whether it's knocked down or not. Okay. The outline for the rest of this paper is as follows. In section 2, I explain clearly explain what I mean by internalism and externalism. In section 3, I defend my primary thesis, thesis 1. In section 4, which will be on the back, I explain some of the radical consequences that epistemologists must face as a result of my argument. Okay, section 2. Okay, so internalism is the view that justificational properties supervene on internal properties of the believer. In other words, only internal properties are directly relevant to whether a belief is justified. I say directly relevant because any internalist will grant that external properties can be indirectly relevant to a belief's justificational status by affecting the internal properties. But only internal properties are directly making a justificational difference. Externalism, as I'll understand it, is the denial of internalism. It entails the possibility that there are two individuals with identical internal properties, but different justificational properties. The difference in justification would be a result of a difference in some external property, like whether the belief was formed by a reliable process, or whether the belief is formed by properly functioning cognitive faculties, or something external to what we're internally aware of. What is it for a property to be internal? One view is that a property is internal if it's mental. Timothy Williamson has argued that knowledge is a mental state, and most internalists would not regard knowledge as internal. It'd be preferable to have a definition of internal that did not depend on the failure of Williamson's argument. Here are two more plausible candidates. T is internal. To say that T is internal is to say that T is a non-factive mental state. Or another one is T is internal to S if and only if T is introspectively accessible to S. So I'm actually not sure which of those is the best. So I'm just going to leave it as saying an exact analysis of internality is unnecessary for the purposes of this paper. So just have your intuitive understanding of what it means for something to be internal, and that's what I'm going to go with. Okay, modern internalism, section 3. So let modern internalism be the view that internalism is true, and some unaccessed internal properties can be directly relevant to the justificational status of beliefs. Stated as a supervenience thesis, it is the view that justificational properties supervene on internal properties, and it is not the case that justificational properties supervene on access properties. On modern internalism, both accessed internal states, such as, I look at the chair as I'm being peered to redly, like there's that appearance I have. So both accessed internal states and unaccessed internal states, such as a dispositional belief, a belief I'm not thinking about right now, can it make a difference to whether a belief is justified? Okay. Okay. I understand a state T to be accessed by a person S if T is present to S's consciousness. So my being appeared to redly or my belief that I am currently reading a paper right now are both accessed internal states. For T to be accessed by S, S does not have to have beliefs about T. For example, my being appeared to redly by those chairs might be accessed internal states even if I haven't formed further beliefs about being appeared to redly. Okay. On the other hand, internal state T is unaccessed by a person S, just in case T is an internal state and not present to S's consciousness. Unaccessed internal states might include beliefs and memories that I am not currently thinking about. If asked why I believe Fred ate the last cookie, I can quickly bring to mind my memory of Fred eating the last cookie. This memory was an unaccessed internal state prior to being asked about Fred and the cookie. Okay. How do these terms relate to the common occurrent and dispositional distinction in epistemology? So I take it that S's belief is occurrent if and only if the belief is present to S's consciousness. A belief is dispositional if and only if it is not occurrent. Hence, a belief or a desire or memory is occurrent if and only if it is accessed, and it is dispositional if and only if it is unaccessed. So I take them all to map onto each other. Accessed, occurrent, unaccessed, dispositional, or non-occurrent. So my belief that 1 plus 2 equals 3 is currently occurrent and accessed but I continue to believe that 1 plus 2 equals 3 even when I sleep. During those times, the belief that 1 plus 1 equals 3 is dispositional and unaccessed. And just one more point, epistemologists sometimes use the words background belief or stored belief, and I take those to be synonymous with dispositional belief or unaccessed belief. Okay, having explained my terminology, I think it is safe to say that virtually all internalists are moderate internalists. Otherwise, the set of potentially justifying or defeating beliefs would be severely restricted, since only a relatively small number of our beliefs are current at any given moment. Hence, most internalists are moderate internalists. All right, 3.2. At last, we are at my argument. So we're ready. That was all ground setting, tilling the ground. Now we're going to move on. Okay, so consider Augustine, who lived for 76 years. He actually did. I looked it up on Wikipedia. I don't know if that was the best. Maybe I should have revealed that. But during this time, his 76 years of life, he held a great many beliefs. Some were justified and some were not. Let us only consider the beliefs when they were recurrent. Now imagine Augustine Starr, a creature who also lives for 76 years and who experiences all of the same access to internal states that Augustine had throughout his lifetime. The only difference is that the demon is manipulating Augustine Starr in such a way that he never has any unaccessed internal states. Augustine Starr might think that he has dispositional beliefs at various times in his life, but in fact he has none. Whenever he thinks he's recalling one of his memories or one of his memory beliefs, the demon is actually creating a newly formed, a current belief. This scenario seems metaphysically possible. Furthermore, it seems that the justificational status of Augustine's current beliefs at any age x of his life will be identical to the justificational status of Augustine Starr's parallel beliefs when he is also age x, even though Augustine Starr has no unaccessed internal states. Consider that you, at this moment, might be fooled by a demon so that you are in a position similar to that of Augustine Starr. You might think that you have dispositional beliefs and memories, but you don't. You might try to prove that this isn't so by saying, look, I can bring to my mind my dispositional belief that my childhood home was yellow, or my memory of the dog that bit me. Unfortunately, you could still be duped by a demon. Whenever you try to bring this belief or memory to mind, the demon could quickly create a new, a current belief or memory. Trying to prove that the demon is not fooling you about your dispositional beliefs by recalling them is as futile as trying to prove that the demon is not fooling you about external objects by touching them. It would be to no avail. Now, I do not think that you are actually fooled by a demon, but there is a possible world in which you have a twin, called the twin U star, who is in such a situation. And it seems that the justificational status of your current beliefs and U star's beliefs is the same. Consider yet another example from the movie The Matrix. Who's seen The Matrix? Just curious? Okay, good. People still watch this. Okay, it's kind of getting old. I remember when it was like the hot new thing. Many think that Neo, before he was freed from the Matrix, had justified beliefs. Suppose that Neo had a counterpart, Neo Star, who is phenomenologically identical to Neo. So they had all the same accessed internal states. So it would seem to Neo Star that he was typing into a computer. It will seem to him that he's recalling memories, and so on. They will share all the same sensory experiences. However, suppose Neo Star had no unaccessed internal states because the Matrix determined it to be so. It seems that the beliefs of Neo and Neo Star would have the same justificational status. These three cases give us evidence that unaccessed internal states are not directly relevant to the justificational status of our current beliefs. Okay, consider the following objection. Some might think that these cases are impossible for at least two reasons. So, philosopher gives a possible counterexample to a theory. The way to respond is try to argue that that's not in fact possible, it's impossible. So that's the objection I'm going to take now. Some might think that these cases are impossible for at least one of two reasons. Wide-scale deletion of all of a person's unaccessed internal states will either alter the person's accessed internal states or result in the loss of a person. Hence, my cases are impossible. Yet, it does still seem to me to be metaphysically possible that such deletions could happen, because it seems possible that there's someone who is exactly like me, but only has my access states. Okay? That seems possible to imagine, right? Someone exactly like you who's at the same stream of consciousness, right, but doesn't have anything else. So I take the claim that my cases are metaphysically impossible to be insufficiently grounded. My objectors might not budge and insist that they are impossible. Instead of pursuing this discussion, I will turn to another way of presenting the new evil demon problem for moderate internalism. The current section employ what I call the global new evil demon problem, cases in which S and S star are internally identical, except that all of S star's unaccessed internal states are deleted by a demon. The following section employs the local new evil demon problem, which only makes use of cases in which a limited number of specific unaccessed internal states are deleted. These cases are immune to the above objections. Okay, 3.3, the local new evil demon problem for moderate internalism. Moderate internalists normally have in mind certain cases in which unaccessed internal states matter for justification. Consider the following, and this is on the handout. Case 1. Fred has been outside working all day. He looks out over the horizon and has a rich sensory experience as of a field, of trees, of a drifting cloud, and of the sun. Fred forms the belief that that's a beautiful sunset. He also has the dispositional belief that it's evening. Okay, case 2. Sally wakes up and she has no idea how long she's been sleeping. She considers that she may have been sleeping anywhere from 3 to 12 hours. It's, I don't know what was going on before that. But, okay, Sally looks out into the horizon and has a rich sensory experience as of a field, of trees, of a drifting cloud, and of the sun. Sally forms the belief that that's a beautiful sunset. Sally has no dispositional belief that it is evening. Okay. Neither Fred nor Sally has any background beliefs about which directions are east and west, and they cannot distinguish sunrises from sunsets by way of mere visual appearance. Furthermore, although Fred's belief that it is this evening is dispositional, that plays a causal role in the formation of his belief that that's a beautiful sunset. It seems that Fred's belief about the sunset is justified and Sally's is not. If we ask Fred how he knows it's a sunset and not a sunrise, Fred would bring to mind some memory beliefs and say that sunrises do not occur in the evening, and it is evening. If we ask Sally the same question, she would probably say, "Oh, I didn't consider that it might be a sunrise. It looks like I judged too quickly." Furthermore, as I have explained the cases, the accessed internal states of Fred and Sally are the same when they form their beliefs about the sunset. They both look out over the horizon, they appear to in a certain way, and they form the belief. Although Fred's belief that it is evening plays a causal role in the formation of his belief that that's a beautiful sunset, he does not bring it to mind. The only relevant differences between Fred and Sally's internal states are their dispositional beliefs and memories. Modern internalists will likely point to these states as the best explanation of the justificational difference between them. However, other considerations might show that unaccessed internal states are not actually doing the justificational work. Consider. Turn your handout to the next page. Case 3, Melissa. Melissa has been outside working all day. She looks out into the horizon and has a rich sensory experience as of a field, of trees, of a drifting cloud, and of the sun. Melissa forms the belief that that's a beautiful sunset. She also has a dispositional belief that it is evening. An evil demon intervenes. First, he destroys Melissa's background belief that it is evening, and he himself causally sustains Melissa's current belief that that's a beautiful sunset. After 3 seconds, the demon manipulates Melissa's mind so that 1, she once again has a background belief that it is evening, and 2, the belief that that's a beautiful sunset is once again causally dependent on the background belief and not the demon. The demon is so skilled that throughout this process, Melissa's accessed internal experience remains uninterrupted as she enjoys the beautiful sunset. Alright, so Melissa's access states are exactly like Fred's. Furthermore, like Fred, Melissa's dispositional belief that it is evening plays a causal role in the formation and sustaining of her belief that that's a beautiful sunset. The only differences between them are the disappearance and reappearance of the background belief and the demon's causally sustaining her belief that that's a beautiful sunset when her background belief is absent. Plausibly, Melissa's belief that that's a beautiful sunset remains justified throughout the whole process. Furthermore, case 3 seems possible. A sufficiently talented, trained, and powerful demon could perform the task of deleting and creating a person's background belief, while keeping her accessed mental states the same. This possibility is easier to see than the possibility of Augustine star because it is easier to imagine the deletion of a limited number of unaccessed states rather than all of them. Okay. Some may object that when Melissa's background belief disappears, it seems to them that her perceptual belief is not justified. I have two responses. First, note that if Melissa's belief is not justified because of the absence of the dispositional belief, then she epistemically ought to suspend judgment during those 3 seconds. That seems counterintuitive. Second, consider that you might be subject to a demon's tinkering in this way. So, the dispositional beliefs that you are inclined to think are relevant to the justification of your ordinary perceptual beliefs might be regularly deleted and recreated by a demon. It might be in the last 5 minutes during this talk, you should have withheld some of your perceptual beliefs in increments of 3 seconds because of the demon, erasing and deleting and recreating your background beliefs. Now, I don't think that any of you are in such a situation, but you might have a twin, you double star. And it seems that the justificational status of your beliefs and you double star's beliefs are the same, regardless of those dispositional beliefs. Okay. We can generalize from these examples. For any one, this is on the handout, for any one of some subject S's occurrent beliefs that we're inclined to think is justified or unjustified from T1 to T2, at least partly in virtue of some dispositional mental state M, we can imagine a counterpart, a star, who is identical to S, except for any differences entailed by the fact that M is deleted by a demon at T2 and recreated at T1. Demon at T1 and recreated at T2. Okay. Like in the Melissa and U double star cases, my intuition about any such case will likely be that the justificational status of S and S star's occurrent beliefs from T1 to T2 is the same. It follows that unaccessed internal properties are not directly relevant to justificational properties, and so modern internalism is false, according to the new evil demon problem. Okay. So in this section, section 3, I do not consider myself to have refuted, refuted modern internalism. As I said in section 1, other theoretical considerations could still tip the balance of evidence in favor of modern internalism. But I believe I have shown that the new evil demon problem is a problem for modern internalism. It's one worth taking seriously. And since virtually all internalists are modern internalists, I believe I have shown that there's a problem for virtually all internalists. All right, section 4. How are we doing with time? Good? Okay. Okay, the radical alternative, strong internalism. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, let us return to cases 1 and 2. How are we to explain the justificational difference between Fred and Sally's beliefs? Here's one answer. We don't. We accept that the justificational status of their beliefs is the same, and we take the lesson of the new evil demon problem to be that only presently accessed internal properties are directly relevant to justification. Richard Feldman has defended such a view. Briefly, Feldman first defended with Earl Connie in their classic paper, Evidentialism, 1985. They defended the view that justification is solely a matter of the evidence one has. And in another paper in the late 70s called Having Evidence, Feldman defended a restricted account that limits the evidence a person has at a time to the things a person is thinking of or aware of at the time. In other words, Feldman defended strong internalism, the view that justificational properties supervene on presently accessed internal properties. Or the way I have it written on the handout is strong internalism, the view that internalism is true and only presently accessed internal properties are directly relevant to a belief's justificational status. I will not explore Feldman's argument for a strong internalism here. I only point out that the view has been independently defended, and it is an option that an internalist could take. The strong internalist will probably deny that Sally's belief is unjustified. Feldman thinks that experiences such as feelings of certainty count as evidence for a belief. He could say that if Sally has the same feeling of certainty that Fred has, then her belief is justified. Furthermore, if someone were to ask her how she knows it is sunset and not a sunrise, she might then form the current belief that, I don't know whether what I'm seeing is a sunset or a sunrise. When she has this new access state, then her belief that that's a beautiful sunset might then become unjustified, but not until then. Okay. Despite this strong internalist explanation, however, many will still consider this result to be a deal breaker. Some might think that if anything is true about justification, it is that Fred and Sally's beliefs are justificationally different. We can also consider a larger point, one that reveals just how radical and revisionary strong internalism is. Most epistemologists are foundationalists, coherentists, or some mixture of the two. Coherentists will require that a belief be a member of a coherent set of beliefs in order to be justified. It's a very rare coherentist who restricts this to occurrent beliefs. Foundationalists will require that a belief be based on other justified beliefs in order to be inferentially justified. It's a very rare foundationalist who restricts these justified beliefs to only current ones. Someone who accepts a mixture of foundationalism and coherentism is very unlikely to restrict the set of potentially justifying or defeating beliefs to only current ones. We see that acceptance of strong internalism would require great revision in how we think about these traditional epistemological views. And the example with Fred and Sally only reveals one part of such a revision in our ways of thinking. So, I'm not attempting to argue here that strong internalism is false because it is very radical and revisionary. The main point of this section is that although strong internalism is immune to the new evil demon problem, it is very radical and revisionary, a view that will be very hard for many epistemologists to accept. Perhaps, however, the arguments of this paper will move more philosophers toward accepting it. Whatever the case, I believe I have left epistemologists with a dilemma: either accept strong internalism or face the force of the new evil demon problem. Thank you very much.